Welcome to Uncommon Minds, where we sit down with truly amazing innovators and unique practitioners across common fields who think outside the box and carve their own paths to success. I'm your host, Shelly Henriquez-Neal. Let's lean into another great episode right now. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Uncommon Minds. As always, I want to start with a brief introduction of our episode, and this one is especially important. And I'm going to start with a couple of statistics. So, according to the World Health Organization, over 1 billion people in the world live with a mental health condition. So, if you do the math, that's roughly an eighth of the global population. That's pretty significant. In the US alone, 1 in 4 adults experience mental health illnesses every year. 50% of lifetime mental illnesses start by the age of 14. These are pretty significant and critical stats. But today's show isn't about statistics. It's not about math. You can add things up on your own and you can really see the crisis for what it is. And what it is systemic. Today on Uncommon Minds, we're going to talk about mental health in practice. And we're going to talk about that specifically in relation to how real community champions meet real people and make an impact. One of Baltimore area's leaders and practitioners in community behavioral health practice leadership is Lisa James. Lisa James is the Vice President of Behavioral Health at Chase Bruxton Health Services. She is also the Vice Chair of the Horizon Foundation, which is the largest independent health philanthropy organization in Maryland. Lisa, we are so excited to have you. Welcome to Uncommon Minds.
Hi, Shelly. It's so good to be here.
Yes. I've known Lisa for some time now. It's always a pleasure to spend time with her. And I'm really excited for our listeners to get to know you, a little bit of you, the way I know you. So let's bring it. Bring it.
All right, let's do it.
Lisa, you've probably heard me say this about your work. And in relationship to your team, too, there are some fields that I refer to as heart work, right? Not hard work, but it is hard work too, but really heart work.
Yes.
And this is one of those fields. It requires so much of you and your team, all of you who are clinicians and practitioners, to give, yes, but you also have to receive and pull into you what it is that your patients are experiencing, filter it, and figure out how to give them practical, actionable steps to do their own work on their end to heal and to really feel like it is a safe space. Before we talk about the work, though, I want to talk about you a little bit because we are likely going to have folks listening who are interested in this kind of work and would love to know how you got into it. So talk a little bit about your beginnings, who you were before the role, and really what called you to community service in social work and the behavioral health space.
That is such a great question. And I will start with the beginning. I was born and raised in Erie, Pennsylvania, and grew up across the street from a community health center called the JFK Center. And it was there that my parents had me join a track team, which I soon found was like my first love. I got to travel and we would go to Maryland and DC and Ohio, and my brother and sister ran and also super great fans. But I learned so much about family and friends and community from that experience. And so my parents sent us to private school from 1st through 12th grade. And that was a sacrifice for them to ensure that we were educationally put in a place to do things very different from what our family had done before. And that sacrifice we were able to pay on. We would be in our Catholic school environment, and it was great, and we learned and had friends there. And then you came home and you had community, and you had your grandma's house and your family. And so I knew and learned from a very young age how to navigate different spaces. The traveling through track also taught me that skill, but it gave me this inner curiosity of how people who were so different could work and be together. And I saw it done successfully, and I saw it done unsuccessfully, and the whole continuum in between.
Right.
And so as a high schooler, I realized, I was like, you know what? If we could just talk to each other and help each other out versus going to the grown-ups, maybe we could help each other more. And so in high school, I came up with this idea of being a peer counselor. And I think that was like the beginning of this. How do you get people to talk to their peers, to talk to one another and share things that maybe, right? Because when you're in high school, you're not really telling the counselor everything, but then you could still get the help that you needed. And I think that was the seed when I was young in that experience of being there for other people and really at that point just being a good listener.
Yes.
Really have experience or could tell people what to do. But I was very much interested in listening and empathizing and giving people dignity and validation in what they were feeling.
I love that you talk about that story and at a young age, feeling that calling to just caring. This is a space of caring. Because empathy, I believe we all have it, but to be able to draw from it this really pure and genuine interest in what people are saying. And gosh, I can't help right now, but I am curious enough to know that I wish I could and find a solution or meet you where you are. I think that's very, very important. Very important. Thank you for sharing that. That is so fascinating. What was your fastest track time?
Well, let's just say that investment was for fun. There were lots of life lessons from track. Shelly, it's hilarious. You should mention that because I spent my entire career coming in third in the 200 on that team.
Yeah.
People who could forever beat me. Kim and second. My coach, listen, Lisa, it's your job for us to sweep the 200. And he made me so proud of coming in third. He was like, when we go down to Maryland, we need to sweep the 200.
Oh, that's so awesome.
And I learned at a young age that even if you weren't the best, it was good to be around people who were better than you and you could play your role and still be a winner.
That's a good story. It feeds into so much of what we're talking about today. Giving people that understanding that they matter, they mean something, because it is things like that that shape young minds and might even lead to some of these mental illnesses that we're seeing that start by age 14. This is exactly what we're talking about. And it's having people who are older than you, who are your guides, whether they're your primary caregivers or in a space where they're influencing you like a coach, and making sure your children are surrounded by that so that whether the mental illness is there still or it develops, there are still these people who are caring and who are intentional about sending positive messages.
My natural thought was, I'm going to travel out of town to be in third. That was my thought, right? And that's the natural thought. But like
it is.
There's people, there's other folks in your life who give you an alternate way to see how you show up. And so my showing up, and I had to show up, was this is what you are tagged to do. And it gave it meaning. It gave it purpose. Because now I'm not just winning for me.
Yes.
My winning is part of the team. It's part of the sweep.
You're contributing to something much bigger than you.
And that piece right there. How do I contribute to the whole?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love this story. It is going against the grain of what society has put before us, right? It's got to be gold. Silver is, okay. But you're right. Nobody thinks about bronze, right? It's like, oh, you got bronze in the Olympics? Oh, okay. Are you an Olympian? Or are you only an Olympian if you get gold? It's that piece, right? And so we're constantly bombarded with these kinds of messages at very early ages, which makes the work that you do somewhat challenging because you're going against these messages that are lifelong, that have been ingrained. How do you explain what you do in one breath? Hi, what do you do?
I help people who help people. I'm responsible for helping the people who help other people be healthy. and mentally
Mm-hmm.
well and emotionally stronger and the best versions of themselves. I help the people who help other people. I help the helpers.
I love that. Chase Brexton supports primarily marginalized and underserved communities. It started in the late 70s, I think it's 78, doing exactly that. Roughly 40,000 patients every year come to Chase Brexton. Without a specific number, what portion of that are for behavioral or mental health?
So our primary contact is through primary care. And so
Ah,
folks are coming because I need my physical or this hurts. And so physical health becomes the gateway when they're having a chance to speak to their doctor and sharing a little bit about what's going on in life. And then our docs do an incredibly great job of making that appropriate referral to
mhm.
behavioral health. There's stats on the books that say most people between recognizing what's happening and then actually engaging in care is 11 years. And
Wow.
so our docs will start off with conversations that are very simple in terms of talking about the two big pieces. Like, hey, how are you feeling? When was the last time you felt sad or down? Or how are things going? Or how's your worry? What are you worrying about? And kind of touching on depression and anxiety in a very lightweight way, but opening the door to some conversation that will
Yes.
then lead to this referral and not
Yes.
allow people to kind of push down and ignore, because oftentimes what's happening with my physical health is what's forefront. And then I kind of downplay that
Hmm.
because I can't go out and do what I used to do or be with the people I used to be. Well, that's not a big deal because what's really big is your health, your physical
Hmm.
health. And then they downplay that interconnectedness that's also happening with you emotionally and mentally. And our docs do a really good job of lifting and taking care of the physical, so making space for people to acknowledge the mental and then guiding, right? It's not mandatory, but like when you're ready, we have this care that you also can engage in this space.
So it's self-selecting. The person eventually self-selects in, but then do you also have people that say, this is exactly what I need? Even though they have to, the conduit is primary care. I really do need a therapist. How do I go about getting that? So you have both
We have both.
avenues.
Right.
Excellent. What are the biggest needs that you're seeing now in the field of behavioral health? I ask that question because it is important. However, it is almost one of those things that, is it ever really a trend? Because of the numbers that I stated earlier on, there's so many people that live with mental illnesses that, is there ever a trend? It seems like all of it is trending, right? But if you had to say that we're seeing a lot of patients who come for this or that, especially in the past year or so, what would you say that is?
I give it with the disclaimer of what you just said, right?
Hmm.
I think all of this has always been here. It's always been under the surface. COVID lifted up some things and everybody's like,
Right.
whoa. And we're like, it's always been there, right? But now it's more
Yeah.
socially acceptable. I will share the one that I think I find alarming. Not that
Hmm.
it's the most important, but most alarming is the crisis of connection. Like, I
Hmm.
think that piece, because it varies across this continuum of generations of
Hmm.
those who are our elders to those who are middle aged, folks who are caregivers, all the way down to our young adults and our youth who have different definitions and needs for connection. And because of that, it looks different, but its consequences are the same. When we don't have those opportunities to be in spaces where we're seen and we're heard and we're validated, you can be around lots of people, but it doesn't equate to connection. And so,
Hmm.
how do we begin to address this sense that can be a little bit harder to put your finger on of when I don't feel like I belong or I don't
Yeah.
feel that I'm heard, and that isolation and that sense of I don't have meaning and I don't have purpose. Is that, to me, is the one I want to lift up and get us all a bit more intentional in our identifying and taking care of.
I really like that you said that, because I think people tend to either relegate that sort of feeling of insignificance to underserved or marginalized communities, but it is not. And it has moved from othering it, along with the othering of those individuals who are in those communities, to mainstreaming it. And I think you're right. It does seem that the pandemic had a lot to do with that. But what are we really talking about? Are we talking about the fact that you didn't have hobbies before? Or are we talking about the fact that this is triggering something that has been underlying for so long, that now we have a name for it, or now we can say exactly what it is, and we can also talk about the origins of it? So bringing it to the surface, I think, is important. And in that sense, what we experienced in the pandemic, for some people, it may have even been a gift of that time to be able to discover that. Even though it was horrible and a lot of our privileges and freedoms were taken away, we had to stay safe. But at the same time, think of the discoveries that some people were able to achieve.
Right. And the pandemic in and of itself had different generational responses. There were a generation of people who were like, move to devices and do everything online. The digital natives were like, I don't care. I can go to school and I can, And then there was this generation that was like, I'm fatigued and I've got, I can't keep doing this all day long, every day. And then there was a generation that was like, so is this on my phone? Is this on my laptop? Is this and they had to upgrade their ability to interface with technology. And so that's what I'm saying in terms of connection. Like when we're looking at the folks who are digital natives, who don't necessarily have to have the amount or the type of connection that an entire generation that was like, no, I was told to go outside and play with my friends, who have a different need for connection, and then people who were before the advent of technology. And being able to meet each of those generations with their unique need for connection and the right type. Yes. I think sometimes we think the only type is in person, but there is a generation that feels very much connected through devices, as long as they get that in a healthy and consistent type of way. And so I just want us to focus on connection across that continuum and making sure that we're taking care of all the generational needs that are present today.
Lisa, thank you for sharing that. It's really, I use the word groundbreaking, but it feels like that's not exactly the right word to use, because you've been doing this work for so long and you and your teams have really been in it, sleeves rolled up, for a very long time pre-pandemic. So it's always interesting to talk to you and members of your team when they talk about what things were like before and what things were like after, and how this is one of those industries that's been truly directly impacted on a deeper level by that pandemic. Let's talk a little bit about programs and services that you got and ones that you're the most proud of. What are some of the programs and services that you want to give shout outs to because they truly are groundbreaking?
So I'm really excited about the work that we do, like its expansiveness across the individual spectrum, the individual work. We've done a really intentional job of curating a team with a variety of experience to really be able to meet the needs and be responsive to the people who are coming to us with care. We've got teams that see children and families, teams that are certified in EMDR to address PTSD. We have staff who have really deep experience and work with depression and eating disorders. And then they can consult with other members. We consult with one another as a team to just build the overall richness of the support that we can provide to the community. But I think the thing that I'm most proud of is the underrated game and intervention of group therapy.
Interesting.
I would welcome anyone to go to our website and being able to see the variety of groups that we provide, because that really lends itself to what we were talking about before, where we're
Yeah.
putting people together who have similar care needs,
Yeah.
and they are now working in treatment together with interventions and practices and skills. And
Mhm.
even in those groups, there's people with different levels of skills, some people who are teaching, some people who are learning, and everyone has something to offer. And it begins to build that foundation of connection that we're
Yeah.
talking about. And so oftentimes I think they start and they come in through individual, but I would like to lift up group therapy, and really proud of the work that we're doing here at Chase Brexton in terms of providing that space to validate groups together so that whatever you're experiencing that could make you feel isolated,
Mhm.
there's this shared experience
Mhm.
around getting care.
I love the importance of having your peers give you that healing, and they're healing too. So you're walking on this journey together. And it also inspires people who might ordinarily not show up for a session, if it's an individual one-on-one session, to come, because now they've got that person who makes them feel good. And, oh, I want to follow up and see how they're doing this week. And they need me to ask them how they're doing. That kind of thing, I think, is really important. And it's all a part of the healing process. I love
Exactly.
that.
Groups
That's a
give
good one
us
to lift up.
multiplier effects. That's a little bit different than getting individual. Individual, I absolutely support that. I think there's things that we need to understand about ourselves in terms of our own kind of emotional literacy. Like, how do
Mhm.
I connect my words, and do those words connect with feelings? And can I recognize my own patterns and how those patterns form different choices and be more intentional? Like, that work gets done individually, which prepares you to be in a really good space to then be in community with others
Yeah.
and provide this next level of intervention and healing and learning.
Absolutely. Well said. You wear two hats in this field, and I want to talk about this. The show is called Uncommon Minds, and it's not often that you meet people who wear two hats in the field. And I think it's important to note that you are a practitioner, you are a clinician. You see patients, you provide solutions. On the other hand, you lead a team of practitioners. You talked first when I said describe what you do in one breath. You said, I help people who help people, but you're also helping people. And I think you lead a team of practitioners who are working with patients every day, and they focus on their specific practice areas too. So that's really a lot to carry. And throughout each day, you're switching those hats constantly. You're literally making change and leading change at the same time. So in all those areas, the dynamic array of programs and services that Chase Brexton provides, you're leading that overall, and you're also seeing your own patients. How do you humanize the experience that you encounter as a clinician, and at the same time manage to bring in the strategy that shapes the decisions you make at the organizational level? How do you keep that human experience and that story at the core when sometimes you have to break it down to the numbers? Because at the end of the day, there is the business side of it, there's the strategy side of it. How do you balance those two while keeping that humanization central?
The word that's coming to mind for me, which doesn't have any like professional credibility, is street cred. I was like, I really believe that being a practitioner helps me be a better leader, like, and keeping those realities connected. Like, oftentimes you can get to the leadership phase and you forget what it's like to actually do the work. And so I am humbly
Yes.
grateful that I get to be a practitioner and then elevate those pieces to what could this look like here? And staying in practice keeps that relevant. It keeps it important. It keeps me grounded, because there's times you can get frustrated in leadership and think nothing will ever move and nothing will ever change. And then you see people change and you're like, people change, systems change, and all of these pieces are connected. I think I love doing both. I wouldn't have it any other way. And it allows you, another track analogy is you begin to understand your role. Like when you run on a relay, you don't run all of the legs, you run one leg. And so there's particular spaces and times where I'm like, okay, I'm the starter here. I got to get us the lead. I got to do what's right. And then there's other times where I'm doing work where I'm the anchor. I got to get this across the finish line. This is important. This is going to have long-term, overarching, sustainable impact. And it is my job to get this across the finish line. And so understanding where I am in this relay, what's my role, and doing it to the best of my ability.
The track analogy, Lisa, that you were talking about, I think is phenomenal, where sometimes you are the starter, sometimes you're the anchor leg, sometimes you're in between. I mean, that is the beauty of a team and really good, healthy teamwork. However, I think it's interesting that you have gotten so accustomed to switching to any different position or any of those positions at any point in time.
I love that you allowed me to start with origins, because it's like, yeah, I've been doing this for, like, I was built for this, like being able to be in spaces where I wasn't always the first, but there were times when I was, and there was times when I learned how to lead, I learned how to follow, and was given opportunity to care and to grow, and for people to believe in me in ways that I hadn't always seen myself. And so I appreciate the flexibility of this work. I appreciate the people that I get to work with and do this work. And I appreciate and want to extend that dignity to the people who want to get better, and that we get to play a part in that role, in their care.
Yes, that's super important. So when things get emotionally intense for you as a practitioner, but also for your team of practitioners, what does leadership look like when that happens? What has to shift? What has to change? What are some of the adjustments that have to be made?
So the first thing that comes to mind for me is focus. Like, you really have to be able to separate the noise from what is truly important in that moment. Mm-hmm. And in this work, people are always most important. The tough part about people being most important is then, as we create the priorities, there's always going to be disagreement. And so you have to be willing to stand alone on what you believe the focus and the priority is for that moment. And you've built trust over time with your team that whether or not everyone totally agrees, that we can all decide that we will move forward, because moving forward is what we have to do. We can't just stay still. We can't be paralyzed. We have to, on behalf of the work that we do. And so prioritizing people, focusing, and moving forward.
And that is true leadership. That is getting the bigger picture. Because in the midst of it all, an emotionally intense experience is felt on the part of the client or the patient. It is felt then, and has ripple effects on the part of the team, the clinician and their peers, the leadership. But then what do we do? And so being able to sort of stop and say, okay, let's reset, or to your point, let's focus. What is the bigger picture? Is sometimes really difficult to do. And in this field, even more difficult to do, because emotionally intense means something completely different when you're dealing with behavioral health than it does when you're dealing with finance. It's just a very different ball game. So thank you for those. Those are very, very important cues there. What's one thing that you think people misunderstand about community behavioral health? What is bust a myth here? Or two, because I think there may be some misunderstandings at times that you probably run into. Here we go again. Somebody is thinking that we blah, blah, blah. What is that you think people often don't get or don't understand?
Right. I truly believe that some people believe that we have magic wands, that the therapist is the magic, and that's the only way I will get better. And I tell people all the time, I was like, do you know if I had a magic wand, do you think I would be sitting in my office tapping people one by one? I would be out here in these streets running around, tapping everybody all the time if I had a magic wand.
Lisa Potter.
I would be out here in these streets running wild, not sitting in this office making appointments. So I think the common piece that therapists, what we want to do is really validate and uplift the strengths that you have to bring about your growth and well-being. And I'm going to stand here beside you while you go through it, guiding you through it, reflecting back to you. Did you want to stop at this stop sign? Hey, are you sure? Because you look like you could take a left. Let's talk about what a left could look like. And being able to ask those really rich questions that bring out what you may have forgotten is inside of you, because what's happening is true. It's heavy. And we want to be able to sit with you in that. And that does take a skill. Most people, it's not where we want people to be happy. We want people to win. And to be able to sit in spaces where people don't feel like they're winning and people are not happy, and finding validation that happiness doesn't have to show up everywhere. Sadness is powerful. Disappointment can be powerful. But being able to sit with people and their needs. I think on a system level, the thing that I would like to bust, and it's not necessarily a myth, but a system I would like to bust up, is the payer inflexibility. Like, how could we find ways to pay for the things that people need? And have the type of payer flexibility versus this broad stroke of everybody just gets this, or you have to get authorized for this. And how could we provide a payer system that has flexibility to meet people where they are based on being responsive to need? Because it's possible. I think with some good minds in the room, doing some restructuring, it could be possible.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that. I love that. What do you think has to happen when we take a look at what's next? And I feel like what you just mentioned, that second sort of myth-ish, is a good example of that. But when we think about things like AI, and I asked this question to a guest a couple of episodes ago, but it's relevant in so many different spaces. That's the new, the now, the next that people are thinking about in very real ways. Am I going to have a job? How is this going to change? And so on and so forth. And we're all already using it to some degree or have been exposed to it to some degree. How do you think behavioral health has to evolve to meet those challenges, meet the new, the now, the next, and the needs of the future that may be so heavily influenced by artificial intelligence?
Right. So I think, and I'm speaking to all the upcoming students and young people out there, hear me, because I want to go ride off into the sunset and enjoy your brilliance, is that oftentimes, because you have this strength of being able to understand people, you think that this is the lane you have to be in, that you should be a therapist, you should be a counselor. And I want to give you an invitation that you should look into the technology spaces, because people who are like us and think like us need to be in those spaces to build what's being built with this lens on the issue. And so that would be my first invitation, that there's like, we have to build up more therapists. And we do. We absolutely do. And we will never have enough with the number you quoted that has 1 billion.
Yes.
It's forcing us to have a multiplier effect, to be able to do the work that we do and reach more people And so those of you who are gifted and you find yourself in this space, know this space, but also know technology, accept the invitation. Your brilliance is absolutely needed.
Yeah.
I also think group therapy, having more of a welcoming perspective to that, as well as taking the skills, this is already out there as well, the skills that are needed. And how do we put that in front of people so it is on your phone, it is accessible. And at the end of the day, that if you need and want that connection with a person, that that is also available to you, and that we will be here to make that happen for people across the continuum of needs that I had mentioned earlier.
I love that. I love that. It's not either or, it's bring it all together and foster this truly innovative solution and resource, but also make sure that you let people know that if you don't want that, that's okay too. You don't have to conform to this singular method of treatment or this singular resource. I love that.
Correct. Yes.
I love, love, love that. So when we get to this point in the show, we always like to ask our guests a signature question. And this question I've been dying to ask you. And it is, what has being uncommon in this practice, what has being uncommon, when has it cost you something? And was it worth it?
You know it cost.
I was about to say, we can invoke the Right Honorable Debbie Allen here. You want fame?
It's
Fame costs. And here's where you start paying.
Oh gosh, I love that. Yes. I think when you are in the work with people and for people, helping people to get better, to grow and maintain their dignity, there's always going to be this struggle and rub with sustainability. How do you keep this so that the doors stay open, that you don't do something that inevitably keeps you from doing what you said you do? And I think I've taken risk on both sides of making investments that were supported by leadership. Like, I know if we do this and we invest in this team, this is going to give us a return on investment. Mm-hmm. And that risk was 2,000% worth it. Getting our leadership team on the same page, helping them see their skills and unique, and then understanding, how do my skills interact with the whole, that we elevate everyone. And that risk was absolutely worth taking, and would do it 1,000 times in every universe to make that happen, because it does have that multiplier effect.
I absolutely love that. Lisa, thank you, thank you, thank you so, so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing the heart work that you do. Thank you for leading the group of heart workers that you lead and really working alongside them. I say leadership, and yes, in function and in title, that is what you do. But there's also this very strong sense of, we're shoulder to shoulder in this. It's not that you're walking ahead. And I love that about you and your team at Chase Brexton. And I'm so, so thankful that you're continuing to do this great work that you all do. Thank you so much for joining us. And if anybody wants any additional information about Chase Brexton and their services, where should they go? Website, what should they look to see there?
Sure, www.chasebrexton.org. We are actually in the process of reconstructing our website. So we should be launching a new website very, very soon. So super excited for those who will see it.
Good.
And some new things are coming on the horizon in our efforts to be more responsive to what we're seeing in the community. And Shelly, it is always a joy to spend time with you. Thank you so much for the invitation.
It was great spending time with you for another episode of Uncommon Minds. This episode was produced by Cheryl Tuesday, and it was written by Shelly Enriquez-Neal. We'll see you next time, and until then, stay true.
This podcast was edited by Resonate Recordings.